welcome to the session. Thank you for attending. I'm your host for today. We're just going to, we've taken another couple of minutes to let people in. We'll still be admitting people afterwards, possibly. So we're going to start the session now. Thanks again for joining us today for this session. Its name is Things to Consider When Designing a Funding Model for Basic Income. It's in the Big Questions series of sessions in this Congress. My name is Bob Gillespie, and I'm one of the volunteers helping to host the Basic Income Earth Network World Congress in Glasgow. I'm here to host this session and the question and answer session afterwards, and I'm joined by Hamid Khan, who will be keeping things moving in the chat as moderator. We have a bit of housekeeping we need to go through to start off, so I'll do that quickly. First of all, can you please make sure that you're on mute unless you're invited to speak? This ensures that you're not cutting across our speakers or our video presentations or causing any issues for people who are hard of hearing or who depend on subtitles. Now we'll be starting the transcript subtitles as well. Can you let us know if any of you have any hearing difficulties in the Hoover chat, or even here in the chat, if you can. When you're talking, please talk slowly and clearly so that the captions can pick up what you're saying. The last portion of the session will be a discussion. Please put your questions in the Q&A box in Hoover throughout all of the talks. So just whenever you have a question, so that we have lots to come back to, you can vote on questions which have been submitted to encourage them to be asked first or early on, or you can pose your own questions. So please do that as well in Hoover. We have about 25 minutes for discussion at the end, but that's never enough. So please do use the Hoover chat feature throughout this. To start us off in the chat, please introduce yourself in there and let us know where you're joining from. You can also privately message people through Hoover if you want to talk more about something. We have a roundup session each day from 6:30 p.m. British Summer Time to 8 p.m. British Summer Time, where there will be some more time for discussion. And so do join us then for that if you haven't got your eye on another session. If anyone has anything specific they need for this session to be accessible for them, please let us know. You can either unmute yourself now and let us know, and Hamid will keep a watch out for that and let us all know, or you can put a note in the chat or send a private message, whatever you're most comfortable with. I'll just leave a minute or so for people to organize that if they need to. Then I'll make the introduction to the session. Can I go ahead? Hamid?
You can go ahead. Yes, go ahead.
Okay. There are many approaches to funding a basic income. In this session, we'll hear from speakers who have carefully considered which routes should be prioritized. They will look at, first of all, a two-tiered social security system in Korea. Sorry, that's going to come later in the session. First of all, we're going to have the universal basic income flat income tax model. and later a funding method that might have an answer for all countries on how we can provide everyone on the planet with a basic income equal to their needs. Our speakers will be taking us through all of this. The speakers, before we start, since two of you are here, Gunmin Yi and Peter Brake, could you maybe give us a very brief introduction to yourselves before we start?
Hi, my name is Gunmin Yi. I'm from South Korea, and the title of my presentation is 7 Propositions on the Income Redistribution Effects of the UBI FIT Model.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And Peter?
Welcome everybody. I'm Peter Brake. I'm in New Zealand, part of the BN Outreach Group, where we've been helping nations find funding alternatives from around the world. My paper is really extrapolating the results that we have from these nations and applying it worldwide. And we hopefully have an answer for everybody to share with you tonight. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Now, the presentations will be of 15 minutes duration. Two of them will be by video. The third speaker, as I say, will be joining us later, and we'll fit him in after he arrives. We'll make an on-the-spot decision about the order when that happens. But before I hand over, I want to share with you the mission statement for the World Congress, which our volunteer team created to summarize what we're trying to achieve with this Congress. It reads as follows: we believe that freedom from poverty and human security should be basic human rights. And we believe that basic income is the best method of transferring this right into a living reality. The time for basic income has come. So we're here to talk about how we make it happen. We can only achieve this through cooperation and collaboration. Our mission with this Congress was to bring speakers and attendees from all over the world together to take basic income from idea to reality. So we hope you enjoy the session. Thank you. Hamid, could you start the recording, please? If anyone of you would not like to be in the recording or to have your face showing, please turn off your video screen now. I'd now like Hamid, if you can, to show the Gunmin Yi video, the first one on the 7 different options. 7 propositions on the income distribution effects of the UBI flat income tax model. Thank you.
Sorry, Bob. I was saying I have a Peter one, but I don't have Gunmin's.
It's in the volunteer rota.
Oh, just bear with me. I can't see that one.
Hamid, I've just sent it to you in the Zoom chat.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. That would be great. Thank you. Perfect.
Thank you, Cleo.
And I will share now.
The contents are organized as follows.
Hamid, are you having connection problems or is it not playing?
I have it on for you. Can you not see it?
No, it's not.
I
It's
have.
not playing. Is it playing your end?
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
The screen sharing. Oh,
Bob, could you make me co-host, please? And I'll try and play it from my computer.
Text model where
is it
basic
showing
income
now?
is equally distributed to all.
It's freezing a little bit.
Structure
Right.
of the article. Section
My
2
end is
discusses
showing.
the different
Okay.
contexts in which UBI FIT models have been proposed. Section 3 presents
Hamid, do you want to
and
stop
proves
sharing your screen and
seven
I'll share it from mine?
of income
Thank you.
Sorry about this, guys.
I've made you co-host, Leo.
Thank you. Let me know if this is playing.
I am Min E. I'm very happy to be with you all here. The title of my paper is 7 Propositions on the Income Redistribution Effects of the UBI FIT Model. The contents are organized as follows. Section 1, Introduction. This paper analyzes the income redistribution effect of the UBI FIT model based on a theoretical analytical approach. So far, only a variety of particular analyses were sporadically identified and generalities or general theories were not presented. This paper shows how the income redistribution effect of basic income as measured by the Gini coefficient changes according to the shapes of income distribution, tax rates, or exemption points from the theoretical analytical approach based on the T% universal basic income flat income tax model where basic income is equally distributed to all. Structure of the article. Section 2 discusses the different contexts in which UBI FIT models have been proposed. Section 3 presents and proves 7 propositions about the income redistribution effect of the UBI FIT model. And finally, the concluding section discusses some policy implications that can be drawn from the 7 propositions. Section 2, different contexts in which UBI FIT models have been proposed. The context in which UBI FIT models have been proposed is different from that of developed countries centered on Europe and that of Korea, where social welfare is less developed than that of advanced countries. In the context of developed countries, tax reform proposals were proposed to create a progressive income redistribution effect as a whole by linking the basic income payment instead of converting the complex progressive income tax structure to a simple proportional income tax structure. On the other hand, in the context of Korea, UBI FIT models in which the existing income tax system is left as it is and is added only for basic income payment have been submitted. It is worth noting that this type of UBI FIT models is not a replacement for the existing income tax system, but an addition to the existing income tax system, so the overall income tax structure remains progressive. It is expected to be more politically and administratively acceptable than a complete overhaul of the existing income tax system. Incentives to avoid tax can be reduced by applying the same tax rate to the various types of income sources that can be included in personal income tax. Therefore, the discussion below about the 7 propositions of the UBI FIT model may be more suitable for the context of countries with least developed welfare, including Korea, rather than the context of developed countries. Section 3, Proposition 1. The T% UBI FIT model, where there is no tax exemption point and basic income is equally distributed to all, reduces the Gini coefficient by exactly T% regardless of the income distribution. Proof. This has already been mathematically proven in E 2017 and Miller 2017. You will see table 1, section 4, proposition 2. Even if there is a tax exemption, the T% UBI FIT model, where basic income is equally distributed to all members, reduces the Gini coefficient to precisely T% as above if the pre-tax income of all members of society is above the exemption point. Part of the effect of redistribution of income in the above case that arises from the after-tax stage to the after-tax and transfer stage is, however, merely transferred from the pre-policy stage to the after-tax stage by an identical amount. In both cases, the final income distribution is the same. Proof. The basic approach is the same as in Proposition 1. You will see Table 2. And there is supplementary explanation. Section 5, Proposition 3. In the T% UBI FIT model, where there is no tax exemption point and basic income is distributed equally to all, the net benefit amount increases in proportion to T if the value of T increases and the percentage of the net beneficiary group remains constant. Proof. Tax amount for basic income of individual I is referred to TYI. Basic income amount for individual I is referred to T mu, where mu is the average income, YI is the income of individual I. Tax rate T is equal to T divided by 100 and has a value between 0 and 1. The amount of tax paid for basic income is the same as the amount paid for basic income for people whose personal income are equal to the average income of society as a whole. In other words, they are a break-even income bracket. Those who earn less than the average income of society as a whole are net beneficiaries because they receive basic income higher than the tax for basic income. On the other hand, those who exceed the average income are net contributors because they receive basic income less than the tax for basic income. In a society, the ratio of people who are below average income and the ratio of people who are above average income are irrelevant to the T value. The net benefit amount, net contribution amount, however, is proportional to the T value. Specifically, the net benefit amount can be denoted as summation I is equal to 1 to N1 absolute value of t multiplied by yi minus mu. And the net contribution amount can be denoted as summation j is 1 to n2 absolute value of t multiplied by yj minus mu. It is easy to see that the two values are the same and both are proportional to the t value. Section 6, Proposition 4. Under the T% UBI FIT model, where there is no tax exemption point and its income is distributed equally to all in a positively skewed unimodal distribution, the ratio of net beneficiaries is higher than that of net contributors. In a negatively skewed unimodal distribution, the proportion of net contributors is higher than that of net beneficiaries. In a symmetrical unimodal distribution, the percentage of net beneficiaries is identical to that of net contributors. Specifically, the ratio of net contributors is 50 plus alpha %, where alpha is the proportion of people located between median income and average income in the negatively skewed unimodal distribution. The percentage of net contributors is 50%, 50 plus beta %, where beta is the proportion of people between median income and average income in the positively skewed unimodal distribution. I'll skip the proof procedure inevitably due to time constraint. Please see the full paper. Section 7, Proposition 5. Rank reversal does not occur under the T% UBI FIT model, where T is less than 100 and basic income is equally distributed to all. Likewise, if all T values are less than 100 and basic income is distributed equally to all, then no rank reversal occurs in the UBI PIT model or the UBI RIT model. I'll also skip the proof procedure due to time constraint. Please see the full paper. Section 8, Proposition 6. If a tax exemption is established and the pre-tax income of tax members of society is less than the tax exemption point, then the T% UBI FIT model, where basic income is distributed equal to all, reduce the Gini coefficient to less than T% when compared to the pre-policy stage, regardless of income distribution. I'll skip it inevitably due to time constraint. Please see the full paper. Next, Section 9, Proposition 7. If some members of society are less than the tax exemption point in the T% UBI FIT model, where a tax exemption point is set and basic income is equally distributed to all, then the higher the tax exemption point, the less the Gini coefficient rate reduces when compared to the before tax and transfer stage, regardless of income distribution. I'll also skip the proof procedure inevitably due to time constraint. Please see the full paper. Section 10, Conclusion. With analysis from this paper, we can derive the following policy implications. First, this research has implications related to the income redistribution effect of the tax and transfer system. If taxation for the basic income payment is progressively designed, corporate wealth and consumption taxes are added to the financial resources for basic income, land holding tax, land dividend, and ecological tax, ecological dividend policies are newly established, or social dividend based on common social wealth funds is added, then the income redistribution effects of the basic income will be much greater. In this case, it is possible to increase the political feasibility of the basic income policy by increasing the ratio of net beneficiaries. Second, the implications of the research relate to the establishment and height of the tax exemption point. As we have observed in Proposition 6 and Proposition 7, raising the tax exemption point in the T% UBI FIT model is never advantageous to low-income brackets. More importantly, the higher the tax exemption point, the lower the effect of income inequality reduction in the after-tax and transfer stage. The higher a tax exemption point, the more income is applied to a tax exemption, and the smaller a welfare state's resources are. Third, the implications of the research relate to income rank preservation, reversal, and the long-term dynamic expansion of the basic income system. As shown in Proposition 5, the T% UBI FIT model, also as the UBI PIT model and the UBI RIT model, has the characteristic of rank preservation, where there is no tax exemption point and basic income is distributed equally to all. Other policies, by making middle classes net contributors rather than net beneficiaries, create issues of social assistance as the policies become politically unpopular and are also difficult to expand in the medium to long term. Fourth, the implications of the research relate to the form of income distribution and the necessity and legitimacy of basic income. The ratio of basic income net beneficiaries is higher than the ratio of net contributors in the case of a positively skewed unimodal distribution, as in the current capitalist economic system. Compared to social assistance, unemployment insurance, or a public pension program, basic income is an advantageous income security policy. It has wide coverage, rarely commits various errors including type 1 and type 2 errors, diminished coverage, or relevant levels of benefits, and is not conditional on past work experiences, present work status, or willingness to work. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much for that presentation, Gunman. I'd now like to ask Yong-Sung Yu if he will deliver his presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Let me share the PPT. Where is sharing? Let me see. Share screen here. Yeah. Okay. Can you see my PPT?
Yeah, that's good.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I'm sorry. Now. So I presume you can see the screen, okay?
Yes, we can see it.
Yeah. So let me start. Yeah. I am Jong Sung Yu at Gachon University in South Korea. And I'll share my research on universal basic income and universal social insurance, a proposal for a two-tiered social security for all. So I will address two research questions. First, can we replace the welfare state with a universal basic income? And how shall we restructure the welfare state in the 21st century? So the first question can be reframed: should we scrap social insurance and social assistance programs once we implement a sufficient level of UBI? The answer is simple and clear for rightist versions of UBI. It's yes, but the answer is not that clear for leftist versions of UBI. We could think of three possible options for the future of welfare state. First, a full UBI at the level of 25% of GDP. And secondly, a full UBI plus social insurance. Thirdly, a partial UBI at probably perhaps 15% of GDP plus a substantial level of social insurance plus a minimal level of social assistance. Here, I mean by social insurance and insurance for income maintenance against contingency risks such as sickness, unemployment, old age, etc. Considering additional public expenditures for healthcare and education, public goods and public administration, option 2 does not look very feasible. So I propose a two-tiered social security system combining universal basic income, which will play a central role in social security, and social insurance that protect individuals against contingency risks. And there should be clear division of roles between UBI and the USI, redistribution versus insurance. Let me consider some theoretical issues. First, about redistribution. So vertical redistribution means redistribution across income levels, while horizontal redistribution means redistribution across groups defined by non-monetary variables, such as transferring income from the healthy to the sick, from the young to the old, from those in work to the out of work, and from childless families to families with the children. Social assistance is essentially a vertical redistribution, while contributory social insurance has play a role in horizontal redistribution. But it also often incorporates some vertical redistribution. And we can think of the paradox of redistribution, where I refer to Conde Ruiz Profeta, in addition to the famous Corpian Palme. So countries with a low vertical redistribution in social security systems are associated with larger public expenditures, a smaller fraction of a private pension, and the lower income inequality than countries with a more redistributive social security. And secondly, let me consider dualism in the labor market and dualism in social security, which mutually reinforce each other. Social insurance programs that rely on employees and employers' contributions cannot work adequately for increasing number of precarious workers for whom the boundaries between employment, unemployment, and inactiveness are blurred. So there is a dualism between social insurance and the social assistance. And the coverage of social insurance has been shrinking in both countries, while the role of a social assistance has been expanding. And the social assistance divides people into tax-paying and welfare-receiving classes, producing suspicion and stigma between them. Social insurance schemes also create disincentives for hiring regular workers in the formal sector by imposing high non-wage labor costs to employers, aggravating labor market dualism. So we see the causal mechanism runs both ways. So I propose UBI as an instrument for redistribution. We can think of it as a pre-distribution that ensures equal right to common wealth, such as land and natural resources, as well as now the inherited knowledge and skills and institutions and the social capital. And secondly, UBI can be considered a redistribution, mostly vertical redistribution, because the same amount of a basic income is much more valuable to the poor than to the rich. And we can design UBI to incorporate horizontal redistribution as well, by giving higher amount of basic income for the elderly than to the younger generation, for example. And in a sense, UBI can be considered a broad insurance against bad luck at the time of birth. So family background and innate ability, and a partial UBI at the level of 15% of GDP could replace the social assistance substantially, if not entirely. So social assistance will play only a residual role, such as disability pension and emergency relief. But can a UBI replace the social insurance for income maintenance? I don't think so. There is a need for insurance against contingency risks. And private insurance is not the good answer to this. Social insurance can be more effective and efficient to protect individuals from income loss by pooling risks across the whole population than private insurance can. And then the universal social insurance or universal income insurance I propose is like this. First, benefits should be proportional to accumulated contributions. So it eliminates the function of a vertical redistribution. So there is no incentives for underreporting of a self-employment income. If you underreport income, then your benefit will be will be reduced. And we can expand the benefits to cover even care work and the retraining purposes. So whatever reasons, if you have a income loss of say 50% or more of average income, the universal income insurance will give you benefits according to your accumulated contributions. And the old age pension can be designed as something like a Swedish notional defined contribution pension scheme, where benefit is equal to accumulation at retirement divided by remaining cohort life expectancy. Then how can he insure everyone? While in most countries, social insurance coverage has been declining. So by making truly compulsory, by taking flat rate contributions from all sources of personal income, not just employment income. business income, and even capital income as well. And employers' contributions currently based on employees' compensation will be replaced by a tax on profits, removing these incentives to hire regular workers. So this will make income insurance truly universal, and the benefits will be proportional to accumulated contributions. So we can consider this in the Korean context, where social insurance is taking the primary role in social security. But enrollment rate in social insurance schemes is very inadequate. So most regular workers are covered, but less than 50% of non-regular workers are enrolled in insurance, employment insurance, and public pensions. Although they are the ones that need protection against unemployment risks and old age. And very few self-employed are enrolled in employment insurance. Korean government recently announced a plan for universal employment insurance, and then revised the plan to universal employment safety net. So initially, Korean government announced unemployment insurance will cover all the workers and the self-employed. And the new law covers artists, and they want to cover more special forms of employees and freelancers, platform workers. But few artists are employed, no formal employment relationships. So this new legislation is nothing to them. And expanding the coverage of the self-employed does not work. So Korean government revised the plan to supplement employment insurance with unemployment assistance. So there is dualism. And the current unemployment assistance is very stringent and stingy. But if we give generous unemployment assistance in Korea, there are large numbers of precarious low-income workers, and they may quit working and claim unemployment benefits. So this will not work. So in summary, I propose vertical redistribution and broad insurance against bad luck before at the time of birth via universal basic income, and insurance against income losses from contingency risks, and also some horizontal redistribution will be undertaken by universal social insurance or universal income insurance. So benefits will be proportional to accumulated contributions. And so since universal social insurance is the benefits is proportional to accumulated contributions, it cannot protect low-income precarious workers without universal basic income. And the universal basic income will not be sufficient to compensate the income losses from broad range of risks for working people. So these two schemes will be supplementary. So combining UBI and the USA can be a best solution for the 21st century social security in terms of freedom, equality, and efficiency. And my next step is a book project with Namun Gang, who will speak in the next session, and Sung-Yu Lee. So we will give a more detailed discussion of both Western European countries and America, as well as South Korea. And we'll conduct some micro simulations to show how this proposal will have distributional consequences. Thank you for listening. Lastly, actually,
Hello,
hello, yeah.
Yeah. Do you
Actually,
have more to say?
I forgot to show the last slide. Can I show it quickly? Can I show it quickly? Okay, thank you. Let me share it again. Yeah. Can you see the screen? Oh.
Yes, we can.
Yeah, the last one. So this is showing my proposal graphically. So basic income for the working age population and for the elderly are different. So higher benefits to the elderly, and the vertical axis shows basic income plus social insurance benefits when you are you have loss of income because of unemployment or old age. So basic income plus unemployment benefits or basic income plus pension benefits according to accumulated contribution. So this will help you to understand my proposal. Thank you very much. Okay, I'm done.
Thank you very much, Yongsung Yu, for that presentation. And thank you to Gunmin Yi as well for his earlier one. I'd now like to pass you to Peter Brake, who will be, whose presentation will also be on video. So Hamid, if you would like to display that, please. Peter, Gunmin and Yongsung Yu are all joining us for the question and answer session afterwards. Could I ask you to place your questions into the chat? Thank you.
1/3 of the world population live in a country with insufficient income tax to fund a UBI. Our work has shown that VAT funding is the only option for these countries. With the base UBI needing to be raised to cover price increases caused by the VAT funding, the poor worldwide are better off. 20% more of the rest of us are net advantaged when funding from VAT instead of the best income tax model. The MyUBI website has proven that 97% of people are better off on a VAT-funded UBI, and if you have your country's income distribution tables, you will see a similar result for your people. The following was a paper produced and presented for the Freiburg University in Germany. It puts the numbers into the euro dividend. The common market in the EU itself are the complications in a worldwide VAT-funded UBI. A wide variance of VAT rates in Europe would bring increasing cross-border shopping, damaging to the home country's VAT income funding the UBI. It would create further trade imbalances and badly affect poorer member nations. The Union requires a continuation of alignment of these rates. Here are the member states, including the UK's GDP per person. A 30% rise in VAT rates pays for this UBI in each nation, as well as a high income tax exemption. Here is the average earnings and the UBI percentage of average earnings. EU citizens would be receiving about 40% of the average income across the Union. someone on the average earnings would get a personal tax reduction of this amount in each country. Given the UBI and tax refunds, someone on the average income in each nation would have a VAT spending break-even of this amount. If you spend this amount on VAT goods in a year, the VAT tax would equal the tax refund and the UBI amount received. This spending is about double the average income and would have to be solely on VAT goods for you to be worse off. A higher income would get a higher tax reduction and therefore a higher VAT spending break-even point. With no VAT on rent, interest or savings, it was people earning in excess of $160,000 spending above the VAT break-even, resulting from a $100,000 income tax exemption here in New Zealand. Given a similar income distribution with New Zealand, this is the expected earnings break-even in the EU. The lowest being in Bulgaria are 30,500 euros. With an average earning of 7,000 euros, not many are expected to be worse off there. 96% of people earn under the break-even of 101,000 euros in the UK. An increase in pensions of 3,200 euros per year is allowed to cover increase in the cost of living from the VAT rise for our pensioners. When setting this 30% VAT rise, the measure we looked at was Bulgaria's ability to afford the set level of UBI and a moderate income tax reduction. The difference between the cost of living and the financial situation of each nation are expressed in the UBI amount and here in the income tax reduction afforded. Having no income tax in neighbouring countries would make it difficult for Bulgaria to retain skilled workers and placing them in a disadvantage within the EU, in the same way as having a much higher VAT rate would. What is being said here is that supporting the EU by maintaining an alignment of VAT rates means richer countries would have a surplus of funds above what is needed to afford the UBI in their country. I've expressed that surplus as a percentage of income tax earnings to be able to clearly state what is affordable for income tax reductions in each country. With an income tax reduction target of 70% in New Zealand, a percentage of over 100 means the country will have a surplus of funds in normal trading conditions and be able to refine or remove many other taxes, much like Denmark has. Maybe infrastructure, health or the environment budgets could be increased. Make life better for people somehow. Ideally, a high tax exemption will be set in each nation with just the top tax rates being retained. This Universal Entitlement Facebook post explains the situation. Briefly, a carbon tax and dividend raises the petrol price at the pump and shares the funds equally to the people. Added to your UBI, it is free to administer and it directs people spending their UBI to the green alternative. This averaged 475 euros yearly, but hasn't been included in the numbers shown. The people's votes direct the spending of the World Environment Fund, which has been fully described with the Global Challenges Foundation. These measures, or ones like them, are needed to afford a UBI in every nation in the world, thanks for the effort of Paul Harnett and World Basic Income. A financial transaction tax would mean a donation from New Zealand of $1 billion a year. Applied worldwide, this would enable every country in the world to afford a $7 per week and a $3 child UBI. Directly delivered into people's accounts by the UN Global Wealth Fund, forwarded thanks to the efforts of Hilda, the writing team, and the BN executive. Other versions of this post for different countries are on the site. Just scroll down to find them. Currently, this post, which applies to Canada, Australia and New Zealand, has a link to a letter to the Finance Minister in every nation of the world. The plan is to have another link to the EU UBI referendum and getting this post sponsored through Facebook. The current rules within the EU set a cap of VAT rates which needs to be 30% higher than it currently is. Due to new information, the versions for the EU nations on the site need to be updated. If you think that the text would read better in your own language, please email me a translation of a small amount of text on the post. If you think it's best, please volunteer. We need this referendum to succeed. The planned sponsorship places this post in front of an uninformed public, which is what we need to do. A volunteer is needed to keep the conversation on track and answer questions for every version of the post, especially if not in English. Some friendly supportive posts early on would also be helpful. I've extrapolated India's VAT funding results to countries from the Philippines to Burundi, based on GDP per capita. A 50% VAT rate increase in these countries affords this UBI and child UBI weekly. This gives a yearly UBI in this percentage of average earnings. People will have this VAT break-even and earnings break-even. The UN objective for every person to get $7 per week and a child UBI of $3 would require $79.5 billion to assist these countries from Burundi to Lesotho. A donation of 1% of the world's basic income adds to $210 billion and can afford a UBI of $12 per week with a child UBI of $5.20 for these nations. Truly transformational. These countries are extrapolated from the New Zealand's results, again by GDP per capita. A 39% VAT rate affords this UBI and a 70% reduction in income tax for these countries. The tax reduction again is the actual current tax on the average earnings in each country. The earnings break-even is calculated from New Zealand's average earnings result. A similar income distribution gives a break-even of between double to 4 times higher than the average income. An income tax exemption means no one pays tax on their earnings up to the exemption, so everyone is better off until their VAT spending is recorded. Mostly you have to earn enough to be able to spend enough to be worse off. These countries require these VAT rates to support or afford this UBI, and the same 70% income tax reduction, aside from the EU nations, which have already been discussed. You will see that the European nations' results are similar to the other models. Bulgaria has a higher UBI than Turkey, but could only afford an income tax reduction of 38% with a lower VAT rate. Romania has a similar result to New Caledonia, with virtually the same GDP per capita. The European countries here with a lower VAT requirement and a higher income tax reduction should be celebrating their membership in the common market. South Korea affords a UBI from a 34% VAT rate rise, and from Canada down, the higher GDP per capita reduces the VAT rate required until we have Monaco at 9%. Western Europe has a comparable UBI amount and VAT rate with Hong Kong, but are higher tax exemptions afforded in normal trading conditions. Understandable with Europe getting the lion's share of world tourism and having the common market. Some might say that this will take years to agree and to organise. I think we could do this worldwide in months. Here are the steps required. Create an international UBI card and distribute worldwide, or do it nationally but with a world coordination. For the rest of us, a mobile phone app and an online account. Pay the suggested weekly UBI fortnightly or monthly. Raise the VAT rate suggested worldwide in every nation. Instigate a high carbon tax and dividend worldwide. Incorporate the People's Controlled World Environment Fund. The world vote of 1% UBI and 10% carbon dividend donations could be done through your UBI account itself. The UN Global Wealth Fund would be distributing money from Burundi to Lesotho, given that they've allowed direct access to their accounts. So either $28 or $48 monthly, depending on funding. In year 2, with increasing African VAT contributions from the spending of people's UBI, smaller funding would be required each year, enabling a wider level of support. Assist countries from Myanmar to Ghana to afford $48 monthly, with emphasis placed on countries with VAT on food. Each country reviews their fund balances, calculating and initiating income tax exemptions. This is in the 2nd year. Pay out any fund surplus as tax refunds to the lowest earners. In the following years, the UBI and income tax exemptions are in place and the UBI funding is afforded. We will have ended world hunger and the deprivations of poverty while encouraging employment worldwide. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you. Sorry for that. It was just admitting someone else. Thank you to Peter Brake as well. Now it's time for question and answer. Because of the technical nature of the presentations and probably of the questions as well, I shall be asking those who have submitted questions in the chat. I'm very sorry, we don't seem to have a Q&A box available. And so some people have been presenting questions in the chat. I shall ask those who have presented them to deliver the questions themselves if they can. If any of the 3 speakers does not have any particular question posed to him, I shall maybe ask them for a contribution to the answer as well. Thanks very much. Now, in the questions which have been placed in the chat, the first one I have here is, I think, for Gunmin. Please correct me if I'm wrong. And it's from Nicholas M. I'm not sure if Nicholas M is, yes, is available from UBTH. Nicholas, would you like to ask your question, please? I shall ask you to unmute.
Good morning to everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, can you speak up a bit, please?
Yes, so I'd like to ask about maybe for Gunmin, Sir Gunmin, if the local assurances policies can align to the UBI foundings solutions you have. or if you have an example of how the local assurances, private one and public one, can align themselves to the foundings.
Do you mean assurance policies, social insurance policies and private insurance policies?
Yes, yes.
Then Jong-sung explained very well the role of social insurance policies and the role of UBI are quite so different. I don't think that that the use of social insurance, the funding for social insurance policies and private ones to use UBI fundings. I don't think.
Okay, thanks. Because in Switzerland, we have really a lot of difficulties to involve these assurances and do reforms for the regulations of these public assurances. Private ones, it's really harder. So thank you for your solutions.
Thank you. The next question I have in the chat is from Malcolm Torrey. Malcolm, could you please unmute yourself?
Yes, I can. Thank you. I'm not sure it's exactly a question, Bob. We've been having more of a discussion
at the end about Dualism.
We've been having more of a discussion. My questions mainly relate to microsimulation research, which is a computer program. I don't know how many people know about microsimulation research. It's a computer program in which are coded all of the tax and benefits regulations of a country. And the data from a statistically significant survey of the financial details of households and individuals in that country are then passed through it to produce a range of statistics. You can then rewrite the program to include a basic income and other policy changes, run the program again to discover a new set of statistics, and then by comparing the two sets of statistics, you can find out exactly what effects your policy change will have on people's disposable incomes, number of people on means-tested benefits, poverty rates, and so on. And that's how we know the effects that illustrative schemes will have. And what I'm interested in is how many of the proposals suggested today have been subjected to microsimulation research, because it is the only way to discover the real world effects of illustrative schemes. I notice that Jong-sung said there's going to be microsimulation research on his proposal, which I look forward to seeing. I'd be interested to know from Gunmin and Peter whether microsimulation research is intended.
Thank you very much for your valuable comments. Firstly, I agree with your opinion. Secondly, but if the introduction of basic income policy, if the basic income is introduced not in ways of replacing existing social security systems, but as ways of supplementing existing social security systems, then the analysis in this paper might be useful to anticipate the income redistribution effects of basic income. And thirdly, the paper shows us clearly to mechanism of basic income to income redistribution effects. And fourthly, even if the basic income is not introduced in a specific country, the analysis in this paper might serve as a tool or a benchmark to evaluate the existing social security systems forces to reducing the income inequality. Thank you.
Yeah, hi Malcolm. It's good to see you here again. Last time we spoke, your microsimulations didn't include VAT. I'm very happy to hear that they now do. Almost excited to hear the range of results you'll be able to now plug out of your simulation formulas. As you know, my UBI site is a microsimulation, and the results of it are included in the NABIG presentation on the Universal Entitlement page, clearly showing that a flat tax benefits about half the population, a progressive tax benefits about 75% of the population, and a VAT tax benefits 97% of the population. Now that's based on people answering questions, and they are the right people to ask. We're talking about their financial situations. Now, the thing that you did say at the end of your comment online was perhaps more challenging would be the political feasibility. Now, I am going to disagree in that, because quite frankly, the efforts being placed on by the majority of people working on funding are on income tax. Now, a third of the world can't use income tax to fund a UBI. Now, the other part of that is like in New Zealand, we've been raising VAT rates and dropping income tax rates for 35 years. VAT has only ever gone up, and income tax until very recently had been going down. Now, the economists, government economists, haven't forgotten the benefits of VAT funding, or VAT tax over income tax. We really just need government to now realise that the time for them to pull out their funding alternatives is now. This is where the serious conversation, and it isn't around income tax, Malcolm. The serious conversation for UBI funding is VAT. Why they're being quiet? Well, they don't want to say, but more pressure from us will get them to open up and face the realities and come clean on it. They're hiding this away, and I don't know why, but it's obvious. If you look at it, it's obvious. The advantages from VAT, you pick up everything in the economy. The end result of an income tax, you're not getting the advantages from all the different parts of the economy. It's obvious. Yes, Bob.
Thanks, Peter. There's one last question in the box, and it's for you, Peter, but no name is given. It's been sent to me by the moderator. So I'll just quickly ask it because we're running out of time. What first thoughts would you have on a micro tax, 0.1 to 0.2% on electronic monetary transactions? This is being proposed for a referendum by Swiss finance researchers and former wealth managers.
Yeah, I have been asked this before, Bob. Thanks for the question. Look, a transaction tax already exists. That's a VAT tax. by the time you've taken that and you've taken out the irrelevant transactions of transfers or your own interest payments or your own mortgage payments, once you've got rid of the exceptions, you're looking at a VAT tax. It's the same thing. The small amount, and gosh, all you need to do is raise the VAT tax. You don't have to bring in another whole range of taxes to do something that is already there. The financial transaction tax does make a bit of sense, but not the transaction tax. I'm sorry, it's already been done. We've already got it. It's called VAT.
Thank you. Well, I think we need to close the session now because it's coming up to 10:20. I'd like to thank all three speakers for their contributions today, and I'm sure you would as well. I would encourage those of you interested in this topic to create a small group chat, or privately message one another on Hoover if you want to keep the conversation going. Now, the next sessions today start at 10:45. Please enjoy the rest of Thursday, the 19th of August in the BN Congress. Thank you. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Everybody.
Thank you.